And he was like, no. It's like, John, I talked to you. It's a red case tractor. And I was like, I have no idea who you are. I was like, I don't have your tractor. Sorry. I found it. It was this tractor exactly where I parked it. Had it moved in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter if you do everything right or if you don't, like, you will be sued in business at some point. So just, it's coming.
This is Heavy Hitters, and I'm Jay Lucas, a 30-year executive search veteran. And throughout my career, I've invested in the success of countless organizations. On this show, I interview industry-leading executives to highlight make-or-break strategies and tactics that drive performance. Ready to tackle some heavy lifting? Let's go. All right, welcome to Heavy Hitters, where we go deep with the leaders, visionaries, and industry vets who have shaped the world of heavy equipment. Today, we've got John Dowling. He's a veteran heavy equipment product support leader. John earned his stripes as a sergeant in the Marine Corps, where he learned how to wrench on mobile equipment, and since then has spent over 2 decades working in product support, both for multi-location dealer groups as well as large OEMs. He ultimately became the director of product support for a 10-store location or dealer group, Washington County Tractor, and was key contributor to the growing of the business from 44 million to 127 million in 6 years, and contributing to about 210% growth in product support revenue. John is now self-employed as a consultant leading his company, Service by the Boxes, with a focus on helping heavy equipment dealers improve parts and service operations. He's also the author of a book sharing the same name as his consulting practice. He is a sought-after voice in dealer product support, speaking at Con Expo, AED Summit, AEMP Connect, and others. He's published articles in Equipment World, AED Magazine, and IEAD Magazine. He's a man of faith, a Marine, a family man, and a guy who has earned everything through hard work and relentless commitment to excellence in product support. So welcome, John.
Thanks, Jay. Glad to be here today.
Awesome. Before I get started, do you mind if I just open in a quick prayer?
Yes, please do.
All right. Lord, I just want to say thank you for all of the many blessings, especially our salvation and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you for John and the heart that you've given him to serve others and to be your face in the world of heavy equipment. So we ask that you join us now and just be with us as we go through what we hope will be an educational show. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, John. So let's talk a little bit about the climb from turning wrenches in the Marines to director of product support for multi-location dealer group, contributing significantly to revenue growth, not just as a dealership as a whole, but also within product support. And then now self-employed business owner, consultant, and sought-after speaker. Tell us about that.
You know, I remember my dad when he dropped me off to ship out to Marine Corps boot camp. He didn't have his verbiage right, but he said, be a good soldier. Marines are not soldiers. We are Marines. There's a difference. That's a major insult. But at the time, I didn't realize that. But he wasn't trying to insult me because but he's saying you do a good job. Make your family proud, and you wake up every day and you work hard. And so I'll say this: I've been very blessed in this career. Every place I've ever been, like every level or stage, I've had a great mentor that kind of just taught me the business, pushed me, motivated me, kept me on track. And so I think that's really what's key to success is really having the right people to support you. Yeah. And I say that now because I encourage people now, like if you have been successful, like find that young person that's really motivated and just needs some help, and love them and support them, and keep them on track. So that's one thing I really enjoy about what I do now is I do a lot of coaching, like one-on-one coaching. So I'll coach with executives or even like a store manager or branch manager, any kind of manager. the dealership's like, hey, this guy or gal is like great. They just don't know what the heck they're doing. They're
Mm,
motivated, can you help? And so, just spending time with them, like one-on-one calls, and just working through all their stuff. So I think that climb, it is hard work. And so I always just say, success is where opportunity and effort collide.
mm,
Those two things have to
those,
collide,
yeah.
because we can work really, really hard and there's no opportunity. You just wear yourself out.
Hmm.
But if you have the opportunity, you got to work hard. One reason I moved out of being a technician is I've got arthritis really bad. And
Mm,
so my hands just hurt. And I remember my dad always telling me this is like, John, you're not going to stay the position you're in right now, like as motivated as you are and dedicated as you are, like you're not going to be there. And then I got promoted to service manager, and I was a service manager for like 7 years. And at one point I was like, I'm just going to die in this office. Like I was passed over a couple of times. I was a store manager position. It didn't work out. The dealership was being sold and they wanted to keep everything fully staffed. And so I just got the bad end of the deal. But my dad was like, just keep going. Like you're not going to be a service manager. And so it just happened. Like you just keep
hmm.
working and working, and you take the opportunity. Like you've got to risk. It's a lot of people are stuck in a position and they're not willing to walk away, or they're not willing to ask, or to take a chance. And you've got to, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but you got to keep pushing.
You said something about having a good mentor, and I think equally important to being or having a good mentor is being a good student.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you're consulting and providing coaching, what percentage of the folks that you provide, coaching to, would you say are good students? They want to learn,
um
they're eager to learn, as opposed to somebody who is just going through the motions.
I would, I'd probably say about 75% plus. And the only reason
Mm.
I say that
That's a
is
good number, though.
because But the only reason I say that is because the dealership already sees, like, hey, this is a good person. Like
Okay.
like we,
Yeah.
we we need to
Yeah.
invest. So I've
Right.
I've had a service manager quit. Like once we started coaching, it wasn't too long he quit. Which was a win. It was a win because this
Yeah.
wasn't the person. We just spent a lot of time and money together. And I told the owner, I was like, well, that's a win. And he's like, it's definitely a win.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if
That's not what you set
and
out to achieve, but
no,
ultimately,
no,
yeah,
no,
ultimately
no.
it can be a blessing in disguise for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guy moved on, got a role that fits him better. We still stay connected, but he
Yeah.
just realized like that this wasn't
Yeah.
what he wanted. And if
It's
you've
clarifying
got to
for
have
some
the
people.
yeah, you got to have the right people on the bus. And
Yeah.
so if not saying
Yeah.
they're a bad person,
Of course.
just if
Yeah.
they're and so that's also a win. You don't
Yeah.
want to get a year, 2 years down the road and you've invested a lot in this employee, even the right person on they don't
Right.
share our vision, they don't
Right.
understand what we're trying to do. And so, but I would say it's usually a pretty high number. But like I said, that goes back to the dealership for the most part.
Yeah.
They're not gonna invest money in somebody if
Right.
they've got doubts about them. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
You mentioned moving from technician to service manager.
Hmm.
What was the hardest lesson that you learned from moving from a individual contributor to now managing those same resources?
I think the trickiest thing is that they knew my faults. You know, I couldn't come in like I was the boss and I had it all worked out because we worked together, a
Hmm.
year prior. So
Right.
they saw my frustrations. They saw when I came in late. So when I was like, hey, we got to be here on time. Well, when you were a mechanic, and I was like, yeah. And so I do realize like what goes around comes around. You never know what position you're going to end up in life. And I tell my son Johnny all the time, like, be nice to everybody because you have no idea who will be your boss one day in the future. And
Right.
So I think the tricky thing is being peer one day, like you're saying, and the next day is boss. And you've got to respect them. I've never really like talked down to people, or I tell people this quite often, even like the interview process of in interviewing them for a job. I'll tell them like I don't raise my voice. I'm not going to holler and scream. I said I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I got all my screaming out of me. I'm not going to do it. And so I tell them we're all professionals. If I have to holler and scream, then this probably isn't for me to get you to do your job. This probably isn't the place for you. And
Right.
so I'll tell them like if I ever do raise my voice, like you're probably fired. I'm not going to fire you on the spot, but you probably won't be working
Hmm.
here very long. And over 30 something years, like that is such a true statement. Like I could go
Yeah.
back and every time I've raised my voice, because I was like, this is not working either. I'm not working, it's not working. But you
Well,
have to, it's a fine line when you are promoted up over them, because you got to show them respect, but at the same time you have to be their boss. You've got to tell them to do this, go do your job.
yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. I wouldn't ever suggest that's probably the best way to do it, if all
What advice would
possible.
you give to a dealer principal or a director of product support who is considering promoting somebody from technician to service manager? Is there
If all
is there
possible.
a
What's
magic
that?
is there a magic sort of I don't know, recipe or instruction that improves the chances of a technician? And what would you tell somebody who is thinking about promoting somebody to service
Yeah,
manager
I,
from
I would
technician?
say, if all possible, if you have multi-location, to send them away someplace else for a good time, like a month, 2 months, 6 months.
So,
Let them
like the
learn.
desert?
No, no, no. Like say you have a location in Houston and you have a location in Austin, or wherever. Like you've got two or three different locations.
Okay.
If you could get them out of that location to
Mm.
go train, let them
So
make their
shadow.
mistakes, be mentored, be coached someplace else, and then bring them back to that
Got it.
dealership.
Oh,
Because you
so you're
lose so
saying
much.
actually leave the dealership, not just that particular location, but to go
Yeah.
to a competitor potentially.
No, 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 no. Sorry, different location. Same
Okay,
same
got it.
dealer,
Yeah, got
different
it.
location.
Yeah,
So
okay. Yeah.
so
So
that
would that
way
include shadowing underneath another service manager?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're trying to build trust, and but you're failing every day because you've never
Hmm.
done the job. You're learning how to be a leader. You're learning the system, you're learning the reports, you're learning, I mean, and then you're doing a lot of customer interaction, and you're trying to deal with all this, and you're just flying by the seat of your pants, and you're losing credibility with your employees every single day,
Hmm.
because you're just screwing stuff up, which is normal. But if you could shadow them or train them at a different location, then they kind of go away, and then when they come back, they will be seen as a service manager or manager, versus yesterday you're turning wrenches and today you're
Right.
sitting in the desk. They're like, it's just
Right.
kind of a hard thing to equate for anybody, the technicians and or that person doing that job.
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens is your pride gets built up. And so then you start getting, where I'm the boss, just do it this way. But that's not the way to do it. Well, they're very insecure, right? Rightly so. I mean, you get promoted on the spot,
Right.
and you get questioned. You're like, why are they trying to undercut me? I thought they were my friends, and now they're not. So, and they might just be there to help. And so I
Mm.
think it's good. Get them away, let them learn how to do everything, let them be mentored, and then that also gives that service manager a mentor that they can call and say, hey, can you show
Yeah.
me what is the best way to close the work order again, or I need to discount this, or I need to do whatever, instead of fumbling around for
Hmm.
hours on end on one
Right.
thing.
Trying to
So
trying to figure it out. You're basically reinventing the wheel.
yeah. Yep. So
Yeah, to me, it seems too that technicians that transition to service manager, that transition is easier in a more mature service environment
yep. Hmm.
where processes are good. So they've observed process from a technician perspective in
Hmm.
terms of the flow of work.
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to promote someone who's in a dysfunctional environment
Mm-hmm.
into a service manager. Because
Yeah.
at that particular point, you're now trying to work in a setting that
Mm-hmm.
isn't functional,
Yep.
which makes it even more difficult.
Yeah.
Because
And that's what I
ultimately, I
did.
think,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah,
So,
that's what
so
I
how did
did.
you figure it out then? I mean, you've obviously built a system. You had
Mhm.
to learn the hard way. What was it
Yes.
that made it possible for you to begin to put more structure and process in place, knowing that you didn't really have that when you got moved up?
Mhm. So I would say Rich Day, who's been a great mentor. I mentioned him in my book, and he's retired now. He was proc support director at multiple locations, a deer
Mm-hmm.
dealership, a cat dealership,
Mm-hmm.
and then his last he helped JCB dealership from scratch, and then retired after that. But he spent like 2 weeks with me. Like we cleaned the office. Like he helped me do a lot of basic stuff. But and so that helped a lot, knowing that I had a corporate supporter, that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to get fired, you know, and that I could call him like, hey, what's like, why is this not working? Is there somebody else, another service manager I can call to kind of figure it out?
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, what happened? So he got me functional, right? Just to be able
Mm-hmm.
to process paperwork, open and close work orders. Hey, he taught me some basic things that you have to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
You have to print off your whip, see what work orders are on there. And he taught me this. You ask this question, why is this not closed? And then you solve that every day. Like just solve it. Like that's as a service manager, why is this work order not closed? And you got to do whatever it takes to get it closed. And so he gave me a good foundation, but I say this quite often is like I was a service manager for like 7 years, so like the first 3 years I did everything wrong, and I just got tired of failing, and so I started to just take like mental notes, and I'd probably been better if I wrote down the notes, but I literally would take mental notes, and it was like, how did I get in this situation with the customer, with the
Mm-hmm.
technician, with the salesman? And I'd always try to, and then I would like take steps back and I go, oh, okay, this is where I screwed up. Because a lot of times we think I'm sorry, the camera's not picking me up, my hand's up. So we think we screwed up right here because that's when we first see the problem or the issue. But really, it was back here. And so a lot of times we try to fix it here.
Mm.
Well, we never solved the root problem.
Right.
And so I would constantly like, what went wrong? And I'd take like multi steps back and I was like, that's it. And literally, Jay, I'd say, I'm never doing that again. And I would do that again like the next day. And I was like, well, this time I'm really not never doing that again. And eventually I learned like, I'm not doing this again. This is, if I had to just do this one
Yeah.
thing. And so like a prime example, I had a customer come in. He was a new customer, had bought a ranch or inherited a ranch and had an old case tractor. And he brought it in. He said, hey, this is what's going on. Had a great conversation with them. And I was like, okay, I parked it in the back. Let's park it there. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Everything perfect. And I was tired and wanted to go home. And I didn't open the work order. And so our check-in sheet, I don't know what happened to it. It's like just vanished overnight in thin air. So I never opened a work order.
Mm.
So the next morning I print my whip report and I go down my whip report. And I do that for 7 business days. So now it's 2 weeks. And this guy calls and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to check on my tractor." And I was like, "What's your name?" So he was a new customer, so I didn't know who he was. I didn't.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so we would have a lot of people. The John Deere dealership was, I don't know, a block or two down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have a lot of customers like would call the wrong location. And I said, "Oh, is it a John Deere tractor?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "John, I talked to you. It's a red case tractor." And I was like, "I have no idea who you are." I was like, "I don't have your tractor. Sorry."
Yeah.
And I
In your
said, "I'll go
mind,
look."
you're so panicked. You're like, oh my God, what
Yes.
happened?
And so I went to the yard. So I just started walking the yard. It was a fairly good sized dealership. And
Mm-hmm.
I found it. There was this tractor exactly where I parked it. Had it moved in 2 weeks. And
Did it occur
so,
to you after you stumbled across it? You're like, oh, now I remember.
yeah, everything came back.
And then
everything.
of
Like the
course,
conversation.
the shock comes over you. You're like, oh
Yeah.
no.
So
Wow.
so I learned two things. So that was one of those things I did multiple times until I go,
Mm-hmm.
I'm never doing this again. So I had to
Yeah.
call the customer, apologize, says you're absolutely right, customer. Like I will get this in and out, you know. But the thing is, I had to cut him a deal on the labor, on the parts.
Yeah.
Like I had to make it
Right.
right. Like,
Yeah.
and so I had to push it through, had to push other customers. Like I just created more work for me.
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
tell a technician, I know we talked that this was your plan of attack for today. Now this is your plan of attack. Well, why?
Right.
Because I'm an idiot. Your boss is an idiot.
Yeah.
And so I realized this, Jay, if I open a work order the same day that the machine shows up, that will never happen. You see what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like I never have to
Yeah, because it'll show
remember.
up on your whip.
Correct. Your work in progress report,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, I don't know, like this thing's been around for 100 years. Like work in progress is a
Right.
accounting term. It's like been
Yeah, it's
around
not,
forever.
yeah, it's not a new concept. Yeah.
And so I realized if I open the work order the same day the machine comes in, I will never forget a customer. I can go in my system, type in his name, it comes up because I was typing in his name, his phone number, but he
Mm-hmm.
was a new customer. I never created
Right.
an account. There's
Right.
nothing there. And so for me, I'm like, I don't know who you are. And luckily the guy was pretty forgiving. And like I said, we connected. So he was kind
Mm-hmm.
of, I built a lot of trust up front, but I had to do a lot of apologizing. And like I said, I didn't lose money on the deal, but I didn't make the money I should have. But I
Right.
dropped the ball. And so
Right.
like when I coach service managers, I tell them that like, hey, this is what happens if you don't open the work order. And it's funny because they'll say, oh, that never happens. That's not that important. And then I'll do a call with them. And they're like, John, because I'll ask them, hey, how did everything go last week? Well, I didn't open a work order, you know, and it
Mm-hmm.
happens. And so it may not happen today, may not happen tomorrow, but it will happen.
Right.
And so I started building my processes of I walk the yard every single morning.
Mm.
So I tell service manager, you walk the yard. What's stolen? What's broken? Did anything show up? Is anything missing? Is anything out of place? Is there any piece of equipment that's not tagged? And so you've got to get there early in the morning. Like you got to get there before your people show up and before the phones start ringing. And you walk around because you've got to be able to prepare for that. And then you open the work order the same day the machine shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do those two things, like the likelihood of something showing up and you don't open a work order um, is very, very, very low.
Yeah.
I guess there could be, but I mean, it's going to be
So
really hard for that to happen.
it sounds like School of Hard Knocks has been your best
Yes,
teacher.
yes,
And I think
I
it's
would say
probably
so.
true for all of us. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
we all learn through mistakes. Um, the idea is it's not about being perfect, but it is about not making the same mistakes over and over again.
Yes. Yep.
And
Yeah.
if you can avoid making the mistake
Mm-hmm.
by being conscientious,
Mm-hmm.
then great. But
Yeah.
ultimately, yeah, if you do make a mistake, because we all do,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's not a mistake, it's just a continuous improvement. Like we technically
Mm-hmm.
did it, but it's not really,
Yeah.
we didn't do it to the extent that we could have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
What's it?
I mean, to your point, the Bible, it's the book of Proverbs says that a righteous man falls 7 times and gets back up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we don't fall. It's not that we don't fail. And it's that we repent, we get up and we
Mm-hmm.
keep going. Like we don't
Yeah.
quit. The key is not to quit and you just keep moving on.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
I remember about 4 or 5 years in as a service manager, I think I was in the middle of a lawsuit, and those are never fun. And I'll say this: it doesn't matter if you do everything right or if you don't. Like you will be sued in business at some point. So just it's coming. And I remember it's like, God, why does everything have to go wrong? Like everything that you could possibly imagine could go wrong as a service manager. Like it went wrong, even when I was doing everything right or being as close to right as I could.
Yeah. Right.
Like things
Trying.
just happened, like out of the blue, and I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. So I'll give you a prime example. We had an excavator that one of our other locations was working on. And anyways, it was having this engine problem. So this was like tier 3, early
Long time
2000s.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're learning computers, software, all these emission systems, and so they were having a problem with this engine, and so they were like, well, maybe it's a controller. Well, there's no good way to change a controller, so they were like, well, let's just swap the controller with another machine, and they swapped it. Didn't fix the problem. They were like, well, why swap it back? Right? No harm, no foul. So a couple of years later, so that machine was in our rental fleet. So we sold it to one of our customers, and we were having some kind of issues. And so the engine controller tracks hours, your hour meter tracks hours, right? So these two sets
They
of
didn't
hours,
reconcile.
they
Yeah.
should be about the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of our good customers that we've done business with for a long time, he was working for another good customers and went out on his own. He was renting this machine, like we were working with him, and so he's stressed out, going out on his own, a lot of money on the line. And so we were working on this machine, and so a lot of trust built with the customer. So my field mechanic is looking at the laptop, he's over his shoulder looking at it, and we're doing some tests on the engine. And he goes, "What's that right there?" And he goes, "Well, that's your hour reader. You just your hours on your engine." And he's like, "Well, that's a whole lot more hours than what's on the hour meter."
Yeah.
And so that little thing playing in his head, like we screwed him. Like we
Mm-hmm.
sold a machine with an engine that had a
Right.
lot more hours on it, or we somehow changed the hours on the
Right.
hour meter.
Right.
And so we got sued. And so I had to track all this down, like
Wow.
everything in the world, to try to figure out, like, what did that go to? The manufacturer got involved, man. It was this big drawn out process. And so anyways, I tracked it all down through work orders and stuff. And then finally said, look, and then had to go to court with the lawyers, and like, here's all these pieces over years after work order, and say, look, this is what occurred.
Right.
To best of my knowledge, this has occurred at this, even down the time frame that we swapped it out. Of course, we still lost the lawsuit and had to pay this guy like stupid money, and we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything.
Even though the tractor was, as you said, it just had a swapped engine control unit. Yeah.
Yeah. Still had to pay
crazy.
And
that's crazy.
And so I realized doing that process of documenting your work orders of exactly what you did and why you did it, and having good stories is key. And not only that, we are, well, most dealerships are on a paperless system now. Still some people have like paper files, so you like all the work order file is there. And so I was digging through files of work orders, like boxes and boxes of work orders, years and years old, trying to find this one work. It was just all chaos. And so I realized I'm never doing that again. I mean, I spent hours and hours, literally days looking, just trying to find this. There was no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
And so the way that I file work orders, the way I document stuff on work orders, is because like anything and everything you could possibly imagine, like I went through. And at the time I was like, God, why? Like, why can't things just work?
Right.
But when I was writing my book, it all came out. I could tell people this is what's going to happen because it's happened to me. And I'm like, that's never going to happen. Yes, it does. And so it's a great benefit now is that I can help other service managers and leaders at dealerships of foretelling them, like, hey, this is why we need to do this, because this is what's going to happen. Right. And some of them listen and some of them don't. But, I've already been through hell and back, so there's no reason for them to do that, but.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we can try to put as many controls in place as possible. Errors are still made. There's still opportunities to learn. But you can eliminate a lot of those errors just completely by avoidance if you have good systems and processes. Do you mind if we talk a little bit about the Washington County tractor experience?
Yeah.
44 million to 127 million in revenue. Service grew by 210%. Parts grew 132%. I think aged inventory was like 72% drop in aged inventory.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience and how do you accomplish that? I think there's probably a lot of dealers that would love to see that type of result.
Well, I'll say this. I said this before, or I said it, earlier, but I'll say it again. Success is effort and opportunity. So I worked really hard, but it was like at the right time, at the right place, with the right manufacturers. There's just a lot of things that
Yeah.
fell into place. And I
Was
say
that
that
organic growth or was that acquisition or was it both?
both,
Did you
both.
okay, and how did you track organic growth versus the inorganic growth, or was everything
Yes.
just sort of you? Okay, so you
No, so
could
yeah, so
tell.
we'll track it because a lot of that growth was from original stores.
Got it. Okay.
Now, now we would buy stores, so that helped the growth
Right.
as well. But
Sure.
even those stores, we had one store that like tripled in the first year,
Wow.
you know, and so um like I said, the right opportunity, right timing. But I'll say this: you've got to have a leader. And I had a conversation with the dealer this morning, and so we were having a conversation, and just for the record, I had a mentor that taught me like the recruiting and sales side of the business named J Lucas. And so
Hey, that's
he's
my
like,
name.
yes, it is your name. And so he was like, you've got to find the guy who makes the decisions. And so in my conversation of asked, I realized like the problem is the owner. Like we have to get to the owner. And I say the problem is the owner. I don't say that in a bad way. I'm just
Sure.
saying it's whatever the owner wants to do. And
Yeah.
so Chris
Yeah.
Wackman, he bought Washington County Tractor. He wanted to grow. He was aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I walked away from Case IH, walked away from a 2 pay grade promotion, and honest, truthfully, it was because Chris said this. It was like, he's like, he goes, I'm never going to tell you we can't do something because we've always done it this other way. He goes, because I don't know how it's always been done. He goes, I don't know. That's why I'm hiring you. And he says, he goes, let's just turn the tractor world upside down on his head. It's like, let's just do it right. And I was like, okay. So I just walked away and said, let's do this. And so with his backing, when you have the backing of the
Yeah.
leader, of the owner,
Mm-hmm.
and he has the money to make things happen, then you can make stuff happen. When you have to fight the owner, or because they're life, I think you've said this a lot of times, like a lot of people, they just want to fund the lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
lifestyle business for sure.
yeah,
And
you're not going to
it's not
grow.
unique to heavy equipment either. I mean, there's a lot of small businesses out there where the owner has a business that's throwing off enough cash to fuel a lifestyle that they want, whether that's
Yeah.
country club or golfing or fishing or hunting or vacationing. And when you find yourself in that position, if the dealer principal, the owner,
Yeah.
has that at a higher priority level than growing the business, it can get a little wonky.
Yeah.
It can get off course real fast because now you have
Yeah.
a bit of a headwind. So having the capital is one thing. Having the will to build a good business is a little bit different.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
It's funny how
So
such a subtle mental shift can make all the difference, but it does.
it does. Leadership is key. If the owner doesn't want to risk or want to grow, or they're satisfied, like you're not going to grow. You're just going
Yeah.
to stagnate. And so having like all those things, we had the great relationship with the manufacturer, we had opportunity, we had the money, and I was a workaholic, and I just wanted to change everything. And so we wrote SOP manuals.
Yeah.
We redid, we tracked everything. We developed scorecards and dashboards. And so, and a lot of times most dealerships, they don't have the visibility. They don't know what's wrong. And in my
Mm-hmm.
latest book, what's really holding your dealership back is what I talk about. Like there's a lot of hidden things that don't show up on the P&L that just erode profit margin
Mm.
that they can't see.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have visibility. So one of the first things that I do with any dealer I work with is we create scorecards. Like we have to have visibility, and they're not
Yeah.
generic scorecards. They're like, so we do a deep dive on their finances. I do a very intensive 2 to 3 day on-site visit, like interviewing every employee, talking to everybody. And then I put together this executive summary and like, this is our problems. And we discuss it. We kick through it. And then it's like, what number or what activity do we have to focus on to fix the end goal problem? And those
Mm-hmm.
are the numbers we want to track.
Right.
And if we have to create our own number, it doesn't have to be an industry benchmarking
Yeah.
number. Like,
Right.
what is that number? What is that activity that we have to do? And so I tell everybody, it's like, you've got a plan. When I talk to the owners or executives, it's like, you have to plan, like, what is your dealership going to look like in 5 years or 10
Right.
years down the
Yeah.
road? You
Totally.
can't look a
100%.
month or 2 months. Like,
Mm.
you got to look long term. And if that's selling, or if that's buying,
Yeah.
or if that's just maintaining, or
Right.
whatever, what is that in 5 to 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Then we work towards that, and you won't get so short-sighted, because most dealerships, they love the vanity of revenue, they love big numbers, and they go, well, look how great we are, and they chase the cash every
Yeah.
month. They create this very high stress, toxic culture
Mm-hmm.
that nobody wants to work for them, and they like beat people over the head just for 30 days. And I'm like,
Right.
stop looking at 30 days. Let's look at 5 to 10 years down the road. What does that look like? And let's start driving there.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is, because you hit on something that I think I see as a deficiency a lot, not just in heavy equipment, but just in business in general, and that is having a long range plan that you then convert into short range plans
Yeah.
that then convert into tactics or objectives.
Yeah.
What some strategic planning books would call a rock. Or an objective, but it's ultimately those things that you have to do or that you're executing on that will get you one step closer to that 1 year vision,
Yeah.
that 3 year vision, that 10-year vision.
Yeah.
And so having that vision is one thing, but if you can't convert that into quarterly actionable steps, it really becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Because you got to have a way to turn that into something. It's the how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
If the elephant is your 10-year plan, well, you eat it one bite at a time. What's the one bite at a time? What can we tackle this quarter? And that is a huge differentiator in an organization's ability to execute. So let's talk about scorecards, because I have this curiosity about, scorecards, the data that gets in that you build your scorecard around has to be stored somewhere. You have to be able to access that information. But that means you have to have a certain discipline in entering information in order for that scorecard to actually be accurate.
Yes.
So if you're not recording your basic behaviors, let's say that that's because you're lazy or you don't care or you've never been taught.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's that your system isn't configured in a way to track that data so that it will provide you the insights that you're looking for.
Yeah.
When you walk in, do you see? It's one thing to develop a scorecard, but how do you do that if your data is junky?
Well, I think that's part of the process is, so I always talk about like the commander's intent. It's kind of like that big eat the elephant. We're going to eat the elephant. So commander's intent, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. This is what it looks like when we know we've got this done. And oh, by the way, here's some key things we have to do or not do to get there. And then
Mhm.
you break that down per department. Like, what does parts have to do? What does service has to do? What does sales have to do
Right.
for us to, as a company, to hit these goals? If we hit these numbers, then we're going to hit these numbers. We hit these numbers, then we're going to meet our goal. And so you have to have visibility. One thing that I learned, especially when we went from, let's say, like 6 locations to 9 locations, like that was a major shift for me. Like I had to
Mhm.
change everything I did. It was a different way of to manage
Yeah.
because I couldn't be there every day. I
Mhm.
had to have visibility across hundreds of miles in Texas at
Mhm.
dealerships. I'm not there, but I needed to know what was going on there. And so then you say, what are those numbers? Can I pull those numbers? And your business system is so important, your technology. Now, I say this all the time: technology is an amplifier. If you have crappy processes, just like you're saying, if you have crappy data, if you have really fast technology, you just move crappy data really fast. Like
Mm.
you don't solve your problem. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times people like, oh, we need this new technology. No, you probably just need some very disciplined processes.
Mhm.
And so what I like to do, majority of my dealers, we do this, is like, let's get down to the basic. Like, let's get as simple and as we possibly can, because if we can't do it by paper, you're not going to do it when it gets
Yeah.
digitized. And
So do
so,
you map processes with those dealers
yeah,
when you're consulting with them?
yeah, we will. We'll write SOPs,
Okay.
whatever it takes, whatever's needed. And so first we find out what's the numbers that we can report, and then what numbers can we report. What I mean by that is data. Some data is really good, but if your system is antiquated, but the data is bad, and it takes us hours and hours to get one number,
Yeah.
then we lost whatever value it brought. We lost in just pulling it, and then
Right.
constantly
Right.
trying to convince everybody this is a good number when everybody knows it's not a good number.
Right.
And so sometimes you got to say, I really wish I could track that number, but I can't. I need to find the next best thing. I think this is, if any business system providers are listening, this is really what's lacking is dealers. There's a lot of data. They just can't get it out. Now there's
Mm.
other, I'm not going to mention the names, but there's other system providers that will plug into your business system and
Mhm.
report that data, and you can build fancy dashboards, and it just pulls the data every day. It's live, and so that's a good investment, not
Yeah.
cheap, but it's
Yeah.
it's a great investment. So once you get your data and you can start reporting, because I just had this conversation last week with one of my new dealers, is like, we have to get the data down right first. We got to make sure it's accurate. We got to make sure we're reporting, because we start making changes. We don't know what changed fixed what. We can just start doing a lot of things and like, well, I think we had a good month. I think this fixed
Right.
it. And so you've got to have the right data to say, if I do this, if I do X, I think Y is going to happen. And
Mhm.
let's see, can we see it?
Right.
If Y doesn't happen, then were we wrong? Was not
Right.
the right move? Was our data wrong? And so, but once you get that visibility, that's when it gets exciting, because then you can start pulling levers.
Oh, yeah.
I like to call them, is like, we're building this infrastructure to pull levers, and once again, we're looking 5 to 10 years down the road, and so we want to build a system that we can scale. And so
Mhm.
you just add another location, you just add it. It's not like, what the crap we're going to do now? We've added another
Right.
location, and
Right.
now we have twice as much emails, or
Right.
the accounting department is
I was going to ask,
overwhelmed.
you're like, we're totally tracking here because I was going to say, how much does your P&L and that P&L being structured appropriately
Hmm.
affect the KPIs? Is it the
Yes.
KPIs affect the P&L, or does the P&L affect the KPIs? How does, or are they totally
Well,
separate?
yeah, no, because a lot of your numbers are coming off the P&L. So if your
Hmm.
chart of accounts, so I spend time with accounting, you know,
Okay.
and I tell them, like, so I tell my dealers this: your P&L is a management tool.
Hmm.
Now, your bank could give a rat's ass about your P&L. Excuse my French. Like, they could care less. They want to know how much cash you have. You know, they'll look at the balance sheet, but they really want to know, do you have cash? If you have cash, they don't care. Like, they'll give you money. You have money. Um, but a lot of times the dealer, they'll look at the P&L and like, look at my revenue. And the bank's like, I don't care how much revenue you have, how much cash do you have on hand. And so I try to really separate that, because most businesses, I think it's common in any business, but most businesses, most dealerships, they focus on the P&L because it's nice and sexy. You got all these big numbers. And then secondary, they're like, we don't have any cash. Well, we had a great month. Well, you didn't collect any of it.
Right.
And so so part of the numbers is like, do we have the P&L? And I'll tell you right now, this is where the rub starts, is because then like people have to start doing stuff. You got to get, accounting has to start saying, okay, now we got to restructure
Because you're brought in as a product support coach or consultant.
Yeah.
And now you're meddling in accounting
leadership
business.
culture. Yeah.
How does that work out? You're like, hang on, guys.
Well,
before we start talking about service management, parts and service, I'm going to go talk to accounting real quick. What's that conversation generally like?
Well, it depends on the dealer, right? So some dealers are a lot more sophisticated and matured. And so they, will have different debates. What's the best? It's more
right
on those dealerships. It's like when you talking with the CFO or controller, it's like, what's the best way to do it? Like they're doing it right, but there's always more than one way to skin a cat.
Sure.
And so then you just got to have that conversation.
Yeah, you can have two GAAP compliant, P&Ls that just report the data in ways that are more effective as a management tool or less effective as a management tool. And that's true. That is true. I mean, I think I'm a good example of that. I've lived through that myself.
Yeah. I like to have a departmentalized P&L. So every department, a separate business unit, and we see what is their gross profit and what is their net profit is really what I want to see.
So do you put parts as a separate business unit and service as a separate business unit, or do you have okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're not, I'll say this, a lot of your departments aren't making money. Now they have good gross profit, but once you put all the expenses and allocation and everything they get dinged with, and if the owner knew how much money he was losing in service or whatever, or sales, then they probably wouldn't give raises, or they probably wouldn't say, let's spend money on that, on the marketing campaign or whatever. And I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do anything. I'm just saying that you would make a better informed decision, but it goes back to visibility. Yeah. If you don't know that you're losing money. So I've worked with dealers who have great gross profit in the service department, but they're losing money overall. And it's like, well, there's no reason to beat up the technicians, right? It's not a technician problem. It's either we're staffed too heavy, we're paying too much on payroll, or allocation maybe needs to be looked at. What expenses are hitting. Sometimes expenses are hitting a particular department that probably shouldn't be hitting that.
How well informed or educated are most service managers in financial management or financial acumen?
Not very. Well, I mean, it depends on where you go. If you go to a big
as a percentage, though, I mean, and we're not picking on anybody, but I'm kind of curious. Like you have an interesting perspective because you see how things work as a consultant from a lot of different vantage points. And I'm curious, just your take on the financial acumen of most service managers. Is it 50% generally get it and 50% don't? Is it
I'd probably say
Pareto
10.
Principle? 80?
I would.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How
Maybe
do you determine
80-20,
that?
but I mean, 80-20 is probably a good number.
Okay.
I mean, that's always a good number, right? Always works. But I would say, I'd probably say around, 10%, no more than 20. That I would say a lot of them don't even know what a P&L is.
Wow. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
I mean, the reason
what
I know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, why? Why is that?
Why don't they know?
Yeah.
Why
do you have somebody running a business within a business that doesn't know their financial statements?
Because most owners of dealerships, they don't realize service is a business. They think it's just a cost of goods sold to support the sales department. They don't realize. That's why they just don't understand it. That's why I wrote the book. It's like,
which then tells me that their P&L likely has all revenue lumped into one revenue category that they don't separate, and then their cost of goods.
well, they'll probably they
again,
separate between parts, service. They'll have it separated in those, like whole
okay.
good sales.
So you'll
parts.
know top line revenue by
Yep.
by revenue stream. But what about cost of goods? Do they separate the cost of goods for each one of those revenue streams?
They'll usually have that.
Okay,
Now,
so you've got
now
good
the
gross
rub that
profit
I get-
numbers. You've got accurate gross profit numbers, but then all the operating expenses, do they just dump those into one bucket?
Yep.
Okay, so then now all of a sudden you don't really know how to allocate your expenses to the revenue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which then
Yeah.
gives you real cloudy data.
Mm-hmm.
No
So
real
I'll-
way to diagnose
Yeah.
what revenue is actually profitable
Yep.
revenue.
So I'll give you a perfect example. So working with the dealer, he says, "Hey, my margin and labor sucks," and it does. And, can't get my technicians, raise my labor rate, and gross profit, your gross profit margin, should be in the 60s and 70s, and they were like 40. And so prime example of the P&L, getting it right. Well, when you start digging into it, all your service writers and service managers and truck drivers payroll was being dumped into the cost of goods sold for labor.
Yeah.
And you're like, well,
so then you don't have good
your
gross
problem.
profit numbers. Yeah. Now you have
let's
this.
pull that out.
Yeah.
Like, let's pull that out. Then let's see what our number is. I mean, you can do the math. We can do the math ourselves, but let's pull that out and then let's see where the heck we're at, And so that's where the P&L is, that managerial tool of what's working and what's not working. And if it's not set up correctly, and then you hear, well, that's how we've always done it. I'm going to have to remap this, and I got to get with the payroll people.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Yes. Because
it
we
sucks,
don't know where
but
the problem
hey,
is.
if you really want to know how to run a good business and where you're leaking profits, yes, you have to do that.
Yeah.
100%. It's sort of like having a leaky boat. I mean, sure, you can put some duct tape on it, but that's not going to last. You can try to put your finger in the hole till you spring another leak. I mean, that's not going to fix the root problem. So if you don't get to the root problem, which is inaccurate data, that's why I was asking, because we have these scorecards that come from the financial statements in most cases. I mean, you have operational scorecards too that aren't necessarily a number on your financial statement, but
a lot of them will.
Yeah, the important ones, 100%. Yeah. If you don't fix that stuff, it's impossible to really know how to run an effective business.
So when you dig down into it, when you start figuring out why we do it, sometimes they'll say, "I don't know. We've always done it like that for 50 years. Like we've never questioned it."
Yeah.
But then sometimes you'll find out it is because of the ease of the accountant. It's the ease of corporate. Well, this just makes my job easier, so we're just going to do it. And I'll give you a prime example that it's an accepted practice either way you do it. So I know people get upset with me, but technician labor, each hour is a unit that we're selling.
Yeah, inventory.
And so a lot of dealerships, they don't want to track technician hours as inventory. So every month they just dump all the payroll cost into the cost of goods sold, if those hours are sold or they're not sold. Now, I know over 12 months it kind of washes. I get that, but you're messing up your data. You don't know where it's at, and you lose visibility. Because if you have a GL account where all your cost of hours go, every time you buy an hour, it goes in there. And then you have, every time you sell an hour, you take it out of this GL account and you stick it over in your cost of goods sold. Well, then if you have a surplus of hours over here that are never being billed out, then you have visibility of like, hey, we're not billing hours. Like, we have a problem here. But when you just dump it all in there, the account is like, well, I'm done. I don't have to worry about reconciling that GL account.
It would show up in the P&L's gross profit on service, because
correct.
Ultimately, what's going to happen is you're going to have 40 hours worth of labor or 50 or whatever in the cost of goods. and you're going to have a lower revenue number because
Mm-hmm.
those hours aren't all billable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to eat into
Yeah.
your gross profit margin,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it
Yeah.
will show up, but then it's trying to figure out, well, who is it?
Yeah. And is it a technician problem, or are we just not accounting for it correctly?
Right,
Or are we just
right.
billing it out?
Hmm.
And so now you have to ask one more question. If you do the accounting correctly, then and so for an example, if we're not billing out all the hours we should, so we have all
Hmm.
these hours aren't being billed or applied, because they should be pretty close. At the end of every month, if I paid a technician 160 hours, majority of those should be billed out. Well, if you have the accounting, when they reconcile that account, we're like, hey, we have a surplus of hours. And oh, by the way, we always carry a surplus, let's just say of, I don't know, 50 hours, but now we're at
Hmm.
150 hours. There is something majorly wrong.
Yeah,
And you'll find that like instantly, versus years and years of low margin erosion. And finally they call me, and I go like, well, here's your problem. Half your hours are never even making it to the work order,
right.
you
And
know?
why don't they make it to the work order? Is it the same thing every time, or is it different? Can it be multiple reasons?
It multiple reasons. It's either process, service managers aren't trained, or the service writer. It could be a process in, so some dealerships, they just put hours on work. So when they don't really, so it goes back, you should quote the job first. I think that's where it all starts, but
Yeah,
just say they did or didn't.
which is in your
So
book.
yeah. So what some dealers do is when they close a work order, they'll ask the technician, hey, how many hours do you have on it? Or some of them have like little sticky time cards, that sticky notes, they put them back on the work order, or they're just write a number on it. I worked on it this much, that much. Well, you're not tracking, we're not being efficient in tracking that technician's time. And you can't say, well, I think I worked this much on it. And
So you don't
so what
clock in and out
happens,
of jobs?
they should. Yes,
Ah,
there's systems that do
so
that. So
then
if you,
again, this is the junk in, junk out.
yes,
This
if they're
is
not
this is
clocking in and out of
systems and
jobs,
process. Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Crazy.
so sometimes the service manager just doesn't want to deal with the technician and tell them clock in and out. So it's just easier when they go to close the work order of saying,
How do you
hey,
fix
Fred, how
that?
much time did you have on that job? Oh, I had like 10 hours. So he bills 10 hours, but he had 20 hours.
Right.
But there's no visibility to say, no, you
Right.
had 20. Where's the other 10?
Right.
Fred doesn't even know he had 20 on it. He really thinks he only did 10 hours.
Yeah. So what's the fix? How do you fix
So
that?
the fix is, if you're getting paid, well, if you can, so the best way to do it, if you can combine your payroll and your management system together.
Work
Now,
orders.
I know why there's reasons you can't, because some business systems don't have a payroll module, and some of them aren't that good. And maybe they have a lasting relationship, like with Fidelity, you have your 401k there, and they say, we'll throw in payroll. And, so there's reasons why. But if you can roll it into one, so every time they clock in to get paid, they have to be clocked on a work order.
Hmm.
So that, they're always on a work order. If they get off a work order, they have to put another work order number in to get on it, to get off the other one.
Hmm.
If you don't have that ability, you've got to create the culture and the routine, the rhythm of, if you're on the payroll system, then you're on a work order. Like, you're never not negative. I think never not. My wife was here; she'd get on to me, but the point is like, you're always on a work order. If you're getting paid, you have to be on a work order. And then at the end of the week, accounting or the service manager is going to have to reconcile that payroll. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because payroll is a different system, like totally separate system. And so what I did at Washington County, one of the successes we had, grow service by 200%. I tell you right here, is accounting for every hour. If I paid 160 hours, if we paid a technician 160 hours, we better have 160 hours on a work order somewhere to account for those two. And so
Is that
we developed our
is that
processes. Go
possible?
ahead.
Can you be at
Yes.
100% utilization as a technician?
So that's the same. I have 100. That's just
I mean, they got to walk to
accounting
the
for every hour.
bathroom, right?
Yeah. So I'm just saying, we are accounting for every hour. I'm not saying we're billing every hour.
Mm,
I'm just saying, I know
got it.
where 160 hours are.
Right.
I know exactly where they're at.
Right.
had 10 on this job, 5 on that job. Now, we may not build 10 hours, now. And so that's the key is the service manager is an asset manager. So telling you like how I had success, I like a stranger. I don't think he was a
Hmm.
stranger. I think God sent him. After I was promoted to service manager, I had this guy. He was a retired business guy from Houston, and so we started talking. He kind of knew I was new at the job, and he started telling me, he's like, "Well, what you are is an asset manager." I was like, "No, I'm the service manager." He's like, "No, you're an asset manager." And anyways, he schooled me. And I finally kept my mouth shut and learned from him. And so they're asset managers, and the greatest asset a dealership has is a technician hour.
Hmm.
It's got 75% margin on it. Like that is like the premium product. And the hard thing is selling that to the dealer. They think that million or $500,000 Traco is no, that's like maybe 5% margin. That technician hours is the most premium product that you have, and we can't lose those hours. So if we're buying an hour, I mean, we want to know where is that hour at. And so step one, so when I work with my dealers, I'm giving away all my secrets, right? Like get visibility, get the accounting, get things straight, and then number one, account for every hour. And then once we start accounting for every hour, well, now let's get those hours and move them to revenue producing work orders.
Hmm.
Now let's try
Assigned.
to bill
Yeah.
out as like 100% of those hours that once we get them on a revenue producing work order. Step one, account for every hour. Step two, get as many hours as you can on a revenue producing work order because you're going to
Hmm.
have training, you're going to have
Hmm.
holiday, you're going to have
Hmm.
sick time.
Yeah.
I want to count every hour. Like if the technician is getting paid, and so I have vacation work orders, sick time work orders, maintenance work orders,
Okay.
every work order you can think of. I have these buckets, and I want every hour in a bucket
Yeah.
because then I have visibility. A lot of people are like, well, that gives them a way to cheat the system and get off. No, I'll see exactly what technician every time he clocked in, clocked out, how many hours he has on maintenance or lost time or training, and then that tells me what to look at. If I have a technician that's got 40 hours of training and
Hmm.
we didn't send anybody to offsite training, then I know I have a problem.
Right.
And so I call that service managers and that, so now we have a conversation piece to talk about. You have 40 hours on training on technician X. How did you get 40 hours on there? Oh, well, you know what? I didn't have a work order. So I just told him to get on it. I just been telling him to get on that work order when I didn't have a job for him.
Mm.
Yeah, but we have plenty of jobs. Well, why? Well, I had to open the work order. Well, don't you open the work order as soon as the machine shows up? Well, no, I've been trying to do that. It takes me a couple of days. So now, like, we start
Wow.
having these conversations about hours on a
And
training
you know
work
where you're
order.
leaking.
Yeah.
You quickly discover where your leaky profits are.
Yep.
Yeah. And it all comes back to process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, having the data
Or
is really is a valuable accountability tool, not for the
mhm.
purpose of clubbing people over the head, but
Yeah.
for the purpose. Look, there's a saying, "What gets measured gets done,"
Mm-hmm.
and so, but the reality is that's not entirely true.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do anything with that data,
Yeah.
with that measure, if you don't have a conversation, then, and this goes back to that 10-year vision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are we trying to achieve? What is it
Mm-hmm.
that we're really after? You paint this picture and you talk about everything: customer satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
employee satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
profitability, safety, quality, et cetera. And all of those things need to have some sort of a measure of performance. So having the data should drive conversations
Mm-hmm.
around getting you closer to
Yeah.
that bigger vision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not again, it's not a mechanism or a billy club to beat people over the head with.
No.
It really should start as, okay, look, we're learning our way through this, so let's figure out how to get
Mm-hmm.
better at it, because ultimately
Yeah.
getting better at it will help us get closer to this longer range vision, this
Mm-hmm.
bigger goal, and this is what this means
Yeah.
to you. And people have to understand what's in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it isn't really very inspiring,
No.
you know.
No.
So if they're bought into
And
the vision and they understand what they're doing as it relates to
mhm,
that vision, and that's a vision they can buy into and
yeah,
support and get behind, they're going to be more likely when somebody comes to them with some data
mhm,
saying, hey, we're out of alignment here.
yeah. And see, Jay, that goes back to ownership.
Mm,
They cast the vision. That's their job.
yeah.
Steve Jobs did a great job at Apple,
Yeah.
not because he was the best programmer or best
Right.
designer. He just cast a big vision and pushed everybody towards that vision.
Hmm.
Was going to be simple. It's going to be easy to
Right.
operate.
Right.
Had like key things. He pretty much, I don't think he would like Apple right now. But he made the point. He's like, if we have to have a instruction manual on to use any of our products, it's too complicated. I think he said something like they should be able to drop an iPhone in some country, and within 5 minutes, a kid should be able to figure out how to use it.
Right.
He didn't like the pencil thing, whatever that you
The
use to write on
stylus.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he said God gave us five of them. We don't need another one. And
Right.
so Apple came out with the Apple Pen. So I don't think Steve would like that. But um and so but that's what made him great. And so
Mm,
owners, they don't understand their job. I always say this to my dealers, what you to the owners and executive team, what you celebrate and what you tolerate creates culture.
yeah.
I don't care what your vision statement is, or your vision statement, or your commander's intent, or whatever
Right.
you say. It's what you celebrate and what you tolerate day in and day out
Yeah.
is what creates culture.
Yeah.
And when leadership, and this is what we had at Washington County Tractor. We're going to grow. We're going to be 20 locations. We're going to be the best in class. We're going to take like big picture things. And then I can say, okay, this is what we have to do here to get there. And the boss is saying, this is where we're going. Like, get on or get off. This is where we're heading. And I'm helping people get on and help. This is what you have to do to get there. What happens is when the vision is not connected or disconnected with what your support managers are trying to do, then it doesn't work, because
Right.
they create that pressure. We want to be best in class or whatever that is. You've got to get there. And then really you want to create it where they come to you, like a perfect area is like, hey, I want to be successful. I want to hit where we're trying to go. I don't know how to get there. And that's really what you have to be to success. But what happens, the owners, and I get it, you make a lot of money, you get fat and happy, and you just don't want to push anymore.
Right.
I get it. But when they stop, everything stops. Like, if you're the leader, you can't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, and what I mean by it, and I'm not saying you've got to work 20 hours a day, but you've got to constantly keep pushing. And I'm not talking about beating people over the head of, we want to make more money, we're not making enough profit. Whatever that big vision is, people aren't motivated about, let's make the owner more money. You've got
Hmm.
to get creative. You got to find a way that motivates people and drive it day
Yeah.
in and day out and not stop.
Is it possible to get an individual technician P&L, like where they can actually see what their contribution to the bottom line is?
Yeah. Yes, you can. A lot of dealerships don't do that, but I think you should track of, I think we should treat technicians like salespeople. I don't know if you know this, but the average salesman, um, believe it or not, an average salesman makes as much money, like gross profit for the dealership, as an average technician. And
That's
so I think
insane.
that is insane.
I think there's a lot of people that would immediately want to argue that.
Yeah. And
How
I
do
say,
you
let's do the math.
yeah, it's simple math.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got, 2,000 hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it 3,000 hours a year. You got a technician
Have
working
overtime.
60
Yeah.
hours a week. 3,000 hours a year. That person is going to generate off those 3,000 hours a year how much gross profit or how much profit?
Yeah. You should be at 60 to 70%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to do the numbers, I mean, an average salesperson sells $5 million a year.
Right.
I like a 5% gross margin, right? So 250,000. Now that number goes different. If you're in specialty equipment, you might get 10%
Right,
margin.
right,
Some
right,
people are doing 1 or 2% deals,
right.
so on average, 5
Hmm.
million,
Hmm.
5%, $250,000 gross profit. Your technician doing, let's just say 80% of 2080, roughly at say $150 an hour will be
Hmm.
like $249,000
Yeah,
gross
but
profit.
that's revenue though, because you got to. Okay,
No,
so
that's
you're saying,
profit.
okay,
No, they'll do
you're
about
billing if you're
200.
billing them out at $200 an hour and you're paying them
Yeah.
$50 an hour, you're saying that $200 an hour times the 2,000 hours.
Well, I'm just saying, so let's just say we do 2080, now I'm counting overtime,
Yeah.
times zero point 0.8. That's 1,600 hours, or 1,664 times, let's just do 150. And I know that's low. So that's $249,000. Yes, revenue. You're right, revenue. But you have to remember there's a dollar for dollar ratio between parts and service. So basically, you just times that times two. So you're at $499,200, and you have a blended margin of about 50%, if not more, because about 60 to 70% service. Parts is going to be 30 to 40% margin.
Hmm.
You cut it in the middle, 50. So you divide that, times 0.5, you got 249,000,
So you
you're right
multiply
at.
times two because you're adding the parts component in with the
Yes.
service.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah. Right.
total gross profit generated for the company by that
Hmm.
service technician.
Right.
And that's only at $150 an hour, 80% recovery rate. And,
Wow.
some
Yeah.
technicians are 85 plus. Um, and if you're charging more than that, then you should be making more money
Well,
than
and we
that.
used 2,080 hours as the number.
Yeah. And that's no overtime.
Not 50 hours a week,
Yeah.
not 60
If you
hours a
did,
week.
and then overtime, you should be billing out in a time and a half. So
Yeah.
now you're making a lot of margin,
Yeah.
so.
Got it. Yeah. That's crazy. Let's talk for just a minute about service by the boxes. So this is your organization. What is your goal? What is the mission of Service by the Boxes?
My mission, honest truthfully, is to take care of my family. Is to provide for
Mm,
my family,
okay.
and so I love living where I live,
Hmm.
and I love helping people. I love growing things, and so trying to figure out, like, hey, what can I do? How can I provide for my family well? How can I stay involved in the industry, and how can I help people be successful? And
Hmm.
so that's where it all started. When I was recruiting for you, I was having conversations, and it eventually, like, when you and I were talking, like, I tend to be doing more consulting than I am getting recruiting jobs, and and so that's where it all starts. And so I wrote the book, and I owe you a lot, Jay, because I remember, we did the our weekly meetings with the EOS.
Hmm.
And so my rock was to get
Publish your
my
book.
manuscript, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, published. And I don't know if you remember this, but you told me, like, John, you can only have the same rock like two quarters in a row, So if you don't get it done this quarter, you can't do it next time.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
like, literally that was enough. Like, I just got to push this across the line.
Right. I
And
mean, you'd already gotten 90% of the way there.
yeah, I just had to push it
It just was a
across.
matter of accountability. So I mean, this is exactly
Hmm.
what we're talking about. It's about me not letting you get away with anything
Hmm.
other than what you said you were going to do, what you've
Yeah.
agreed to. And you had
Hmm.
agreed that you were going to do this one thing. And so we just had regular weekly conversations about that.
Hmm.
And those conversations would turn into, okay, what do you need to do this week to get one
Hmm.
step closer to getting that book
Yeah.
published or
Hmm.
doing this thing or that thing? And it's
Hmm.
funny how that kind of conversation takes this overwhelming elephant and breaks it down
Hmm.
into a bite size for you to be able to just
Yeah.
execute on. And eventually you look back and you're like, wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
Hmm.
you can look back and go, man,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. When I look at our business
Yeah.
and I think about what it was like 10 years ago when we started EOS, the business today is so dramatically different. Even though we
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing, the way we do it is so much better today because of
Mm-hmm.
the quarterly and daily iterations of just making
Mm-hmm.
incremental improvements.
Yeah.
And how do you make those improvements? Well, they're based on that 10-year target, that
Mm-hmm.
vision. For us, it's 5-star reviews, but it's also, if I got all 5-star reviews and we lost money, obviously we're not going to be a going concern. So there's other
Yeah.
components to that, but a lot of it too is customer feedback. Like how do we
Mm-hmm.
satisfy the needs of the customer? How do
Mm-hmm.
we do a better job? How do we
Yeah.
alleviate the concerns that they have about getting a recruiter involved?
Mm-hmm.
And you just slowly and incrementally. So yeah, I mean, the book for you, um, now published, available on Amazon,
Yeah.
has
Five
now.
star rated. So I tell people, if you give me a rating, please don't give me anything less than 5 stars because I don't want to mess it up. But
Well, but that's turned into a business now.
mm-hmm.
And so people could self-implement service by the boxes
Mm-hmm.
by getting your book and basically deploying these practices.
Mm-hmm.
But they could also call you and say, "Hey, help us implement service by the boxes."
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, it goes back to, we don't understand, just like you're saying, like we don't understand what the problem is. And that, my latest book, what's really holding the dealership back, is like they don't understand. So they
Mm,
work hard, they focus on the wrong things. We're very sales focused, very
hmm.
focused on the top line revenue, and they just sell more. And
Yeah,
so it's like this cyclical issue. Parts and service isn't functioning, so we're not making the money that we need. So let's sell more whole goods, which is going to highlight or even create more pressure on a broken system in parts and service, which
right,
pisses off more of our customers. So
right.
let's just keep selling more. Let's keep just trying to shove
Yeah,
stuff through there.
it's
And
Einstein's definition of insanity.
mm-hmm.
You keep
and
doing
so
the same things over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
mhm. And
It's
I'll be
madness.
honest too. Yeah, it is. It is madness, and they're frustrated, and they're good people. They're good
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
working
This isn't
hard.
a personal attack.
Yeah, and so another thing is, a lot of people don't understand service. Even service managers don't understand service. They
Mm,
have no idea, like, how on earth does a machine come in and get out that way? And they think we're. I was at a dealership not too long ago, and their average days to close is like 30 days, right? And so they had a pretty good business system, so we could track some data.
hmm.
And so it took them 2 weeks to get parts, and it
Wow.
took them almost 2 weeks to close the work order.
Which is
And
funny
then they were,
because let's stop there for a second and double click on the whole 2 weeks to get parts.
Mhm.
So you've now identified that part of the reason why you have a 30 days to close on a work order, when it should probably be a week.
Mhm.
2 weeks of that is I'm waiting on a part. So
Mhm.
now you go, okay, well, why is that? And now you
Yeah.
identify that the root problem is
Mhm.
related to parts, but then it's a discovery process. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that? Is
Mhm.
this is this just poor inventory management, inventory
Mhm.
planning?
Yeah.
What's
It,
what's the problem there?
mhm. So
Because there's
yeah,
no
so
reason why. I've always said, and it took me a while to figure this out because I didn't grow up in the heavy equipment industry.
mhm.
I've grown up in recruiting. My entire career has
Yeah.
been recruiting, but since 2018, 2019, it's all been heavy equipment. Well, the first few years is a lot of just learning how the business operates.
Mhm.
And I've learned that parts is oftentimes looked at as the sort of forgive the expression, redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
It's really the cornerstone because
Mhm.
if you have a great technician, but that technician can't close their work order because they don't have
Mhm.
parts, that's a
Mhm.
problem. And if you can't
Yeah.
close the work order, then your customer can't get his equipment. They're going to
Mhm.
be pissed and they're probably never going to buy that machine again,
Yeah.
which is going to then affect sales.
Mhm.
So if you don't have a tip top parts department where
Mm-hmm.
your fill rates are 90% and your inventory turns
Mm-hmm.
are high,
Yeah.
then you've got a lot of opportunity to improve because it's
Mm-hmm.
probably having a trickle down effect to every other part of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. And so you kind of brought the point up of like, hey, you come in and service, and he goes, now you're talking accounting, you're talking
Parts.
because
Yeah.
I would say like service just encompasses everything. You
Mm,
yes, I guess technically I do service, but once I get in there, then it's everything else. It's, you can't have on a three-legged stool, you can't have one stool shorter than the other. Like you can
right.
make service perfect, but
Right.
it's going to underperform.
Yeah.
And since people don't so I was a technician, and people like me, like consultants, would come in, evaluate why, whatever. Then they would have this big old meeting, and we'd all come up, and they would say, y'all need to work faster, you need to do this, you need to do that. And what happens is, when service is struggling, since we don't understand service as a process, then we think naturally it's the technician, because service is just fixing things, right?
Right.
And so I tell people, I always ask them, like, what's the purpose of a service department? Oh, fix equipment, customer machine uptime, take care of our customers, support the sales department. And I said, that's why you're failing. The purpose of the service department is to sell technicians hours. Now, the way that we sell hours is doing everything you just said,
Hmm.
but the end goal, the end game, is to be a profit generating machine. And so we have to have that mindset that that is our purpose. And that changes everything. It's not just fixing the piece of machine and getting it out the door. Because if the technician fixes it and get it out the door, but it takes us 2 weeks, or you know what, Jay? There's somebody who takes them 9 months to a year to close the work order and get paid.
Yeah. Or let's say you get it out in a week, but you do it
Mhm.
at a loss.
Yeah.
You don't want
You
that
lose
either.
money on it.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
You don't want that either. I mean, think about, you've got a parts department that's not stocking correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Machine comes in, you're now paying a premium on transportation to get that
Mm-hmm.
part overnighted. That's eating
Yeah.
into your profitability because you're
Mm-hmm.
not managing inventory correctly. Plus it's adding
Mm-hmm.
time. Now that technician is you got a machine that's in a bay, it's taking up space. What's that technician going to do now?
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically
Mm-hmm.
sitting there waiting for a part to come in.
Yeah.
And so now the technician's efficiency is affected because poor parts management.
Mm-hmm.
So
And so I tell
crazy.
people, so a lot of times, like, goes back to the accounting process, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of them, well, I'm only paying that guy $30 an hour or whatever. It's like, it's so no. And so I say, no, you charge yourself back $200 an hour. If that's your labor rate, anything that technician does, you charge yourself $200,
Yeah.
because you want to capture the true loss or the
Right.
true cost or true value of that hour. And so a lot of time they manipulate those numbers. And so I tell dealers, owners, like, just because you don't write the number down doesn't mean you didn't lose that money.
Yeah.
So if the technician should be billing $200 an hour and you're not billing $200 because they're mowing the grass or fixing the leaky toilet or making the gate shut, I'm thinking, would you pay $200 an hour to do that? Would you pay somebody $200 to fix your toilet? No. Then why
Right.
are you paying $200 an hour to fix a toilet? But I'm
Right.
not. Yes, you are. And that's like trying to get that mental business block. They're saying, no, he's already paid for. That's one of my employees. I got to pay that every month anyways. No, that's an hour that you should be selling. And if you're fixing a toilet, then you can't sell that hour. So you literally lost $200, $400. Once you realize how important the technician hour is. And so that gets back to when I talk about, like, what we celebrate and we tolerate becomes our culture is. And so this is almost a verbatim conversation I had is, you can't tell technicians, we want you to stay focused on working. And then when the shop door won't go down, or you know um maybe the gate won't shut at the dealership, and your technician goes fix it, and you give them a high five and say, great job, awesome. Well, you just told him what's important is to fix things or to be a maintenance guy, because you don't tell them, hey, great, good job when they we repair a piece of equipment. And so, but but they're trying to be nice. Like they're trying to say, they really do appreciate them fixing that. But in reality, they say, you know what, I value you as a technician. Like, I get why you fixed the gate. I value you as a technician. I want you to focus on fixing equipment. I don't want you doing these other tasks that below your skill level.
Which
You let me know and
likely,
I'll call somebody to come fix it for you.
yeah, and likely those things are being done because they aren't billable to a machine
Mm-hmm.
or a work order. And it's like, well, they can stand around and do nothing, sweep the floors, fix the
Mm-hmm.
toilet, fix the gate,
Yeah.
sweep the
Yeah.
lot, whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So having all of your parts and pieces, no pun intended, but parts, having everything work and be
Mm-hmm.
systematic and have good
Yeah.
flow will allow you to make sure those hours of your technician,
Mm-hmm.
that inventory,
Yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
billable to a work order and not
Yep.
to overhead.
Yeah. Yeah. And you make a good point. Like, if you don't have any work and they're just sitting around, I get it. Like, find them something to do. I'm not saying,
Well, but
but a
that,
lot of
that begs
times,
a different question. Why don't they have
yeah.
work? That's generally
Yes.
not,
When
that's
nobody has
generally not the
technicians,
issue.
yes, everybody is short technicians. So if you don't have work in your shop, the problem
Something's
isn't,
wrong.
I need to find things, keep my guys, like, go fix the gate. The problem is why don't we have work in the shop? Like,
Right.
that's what we
Yeah,
need to, you know, uh, focus on. But
sure.
that goes back to that we're a very reactive industry, especially with the service department. The service department doesn't, as a whole, very general statement, but it seems to hold true, is a service department, they don't think that they should have to go drum work up. They think a good successful dealership is one you just sit there and customers just bring you stuff to work.
Right.
And so a lot of staffing levels, um, a lot of dealerships, they struggle just because they're not staffed appropriately. Like, they just don't have enough technicians. Like, it doesn't matter how successful the technicians are, it doesn't matter how great their gross profit is. They just don't have enough technician hours to sell. And so, but the service manager is like, well, John, I may run out of work. Okay. And what they're saying is, I only want 5 technicians because that's easy to manage. They're going to stay busy the majority of the time of the year. And if I have 10 technicians, then that means I'm going to have to go find work for them. Yes, that's our job, is to sell more hours. That's how we make money, is selling more technician hours.
So this goes back to alignment.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to grow and you have a service manager that's not growing his business,
Yeah.
well, then what you have to create, they have to execute against whatever it is that you have laid out. If growing is part of the plan, then they need to be managing and leading to grow that business and not just maintain.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
if there is no growth, then there should be a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? And if that person doesn't want to
Yeah.
grow because they're comfortable with 5 techs, well, then the question is, are you the right guy for this job? And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with wanting to manage 5 techs.
Mm-hmm. Just not at my
Maybe,
dealership.
yeah, right, exactly.
You can
Just
go to the
here.
competition next door and manage
Yeah,
5
right,
technicians.
right. Or you figure out how to, maybe the question is, do we bring in another service manager? Could we afford to have a second service manager
Or
so that we could
PSSR.
maintain? Because you don't want to, right, or bring in a PSSR. But if the PSSR is going to bring in more work, and that means that you're going to have to hire more techs, and that person's going to have to manage 10 people and no longer managing 5, and that's more work than they really want. The question is, well, do we value this person in leading 5 people? How do we, is it feasible financially for us to keep that person managing those 5 and add some other people, or if the answer is no, well, then you obviously have to sort that out. Maybe that person is just not the right guy for the job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And those are,
that's
Jay,
okay.
that's those conversations I have every day. Like, do we have the right people? Yeah, you
Yeah.
know. So you start up here, and as you've seen in our conversation today, we've progressed all the way down. Okay, now we're building this structure, and then talking about like the financial side, the P&L, having a budget. Like a service manager or parts manager, they should have budgets. Like, this is what we expect you to do. This is how much your profit should be. This is, your expenses, your freight, whatever. And then if they can't manage that, if you can't manage past 5 techs, then we got to have a conversation. And so
Right.
this is where
Yeah.
it's really hard, that if you're going to be a business person, like, this is our growth. This is what we have to do to get there. And we got to take a lot of personal feelings out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of every manager, everybody has a certain capacity, right? If you just think a plate, like, everybody has different size plates. Trump, like, that guy has he has like this big plate, like he can like handle everything. At least it seems like it. He kind of exhausts me just thinking about everything he's doing. But we all have a plate. And if you're managed, this is where the emotional intelligence, HR or whatever comes in and say, that service manager is really great, but they're only a five technician person. So everything I'm saying is like real life stuff that happens that I deal with every day. And so a lot of times you'll hear this problem. We just can't keep techs. This new generation, they just don't want to work. And what happens is you have a 5 technician service manager, and you get to 7 techs or 8 techs, and slowly they find reasons why to let them go. Intentionally they just fire them, or they'll sabotage them,
Mm.
but they're going to stay at 5 techs, and you can even hire 3 more. Eventually he'll whittle them back down to 5. Well, the problem isn't the next generation doesn't want to work, because the next generation doesn't want to go to college. They want to be in the trades. They want to work with their hands. But they're not being allowed in. They're not being cultivated. And
That's
really,
the
as
key.
managers are like, I want to have 5 technician shop. But this is what's funny, Jay. The service manager doesn't even know what they're doing. They don't even realizing they're running people off on purpose. And then they
Right.
complain about how they can't
It's
find
yeah. You're
technicians.
saying it's not a conscious decision.
No, no. They're
Crazy.
scratching their head, wondering why I can't keep techs.
It's sort of like a sponge that's reached saturation. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to absorb any more water. These service
Yeah.
managers, like a sponge, can only absorb 5 technicians,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
To try to give them more is not feasible.
Yeah. And so nobody takes the time to focus, to develop their people, and say, why is this failing? Why am I
Right.
constantly having when you're constantly having turnover,
Yeah.
the problem is probably not the people you're turning over. It's probably your boss, that immediate supervisor, or the process, or something else.
Certainly, it's a
And but
pattern. If there's a pattern,
a
then yeah.
pattern,
Either they
but
don't know how to hire, or they
mm-hmm,
don't know how to lead. But either one of those
yeah.
problems is a service manager problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or parts manager or whatever. We're not picking
Yeah,
on
right.
service
Yeah,
managers.
yeah.
Just
Pick your
whatever.
leader. Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
And because
Yeah,
you
it's
do the same
crazy.
thing with sales managers. I've seen it with sales managers of saying, can't find any good salespeople. I got to close every deal. I got to save every
Right.
deal. And it's
And
salesmen
it
running
goes
it.
all the way up to the executives. I mean, I've seen
Mm-hmm.
VPs that they do this. It's not just
Constantly turn through
management
people.
level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wanted to get in touch with you and they were interested in evaluating service by the boxes
Yeah.
as a solution to helping them improve their service and parts business, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah. Just call me 979-337-4339. Or shoot me an email, John, JOHN, at servicebytheboxes.com.
Okay.
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So, I mean,
Okay. So they can find you on
can find
LinkedIn.
me. Yeah.
They can
You can
call
email
you.
me, John, at servicebytheboxes.
Mhm. Got it.
Got a website, servicebytheboxes.com.
And you have a contact form on your website too.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
You can fill it out.
I'll make sure those are in the notes so people can easily link back to
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. You can you could Google John Dowling, Service by the Boxes, and either my book comes up on my
Yeah.
website or my YouTube
Yeah.
channel
You
or a
should be pretty
LinkedIn
easy to
thing.
track down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Well, this has been great. It's funny. I always start these with a sort of outline, and I don't. I don't think that we really follow that at all. But that's great. I love
yeah.
having conversations and having these conversations develop organically
Hmm.
through natural curiosity. It's clear that service departments and product support at dealerships is a huge opportunity
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
dealer principals. And if they really want to run a good business, running service and parts like a top
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
foundational to a high
Hmm.
performing
Yeah.
dealership. So,
Yeah. I speak at, uh, I spoke at the Connect conference right before ConExpo,
mhm.
and it's association for in users. So my clients' customers, and so I really like working with them because I get to talk to what our customers are wanting. And
like fleet,
man, they
like fleet
yeah, fleet
managers.
managers.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So it's this
And is
association,
it focused on off road equipment or is
off road
Connect?
and
It is
yeah.
okay. So it doesn't
Yeah,
include on highway.
it's
It's
off
really
road
just off road machinery.
on road cranes. So
Oh,
just think
okay.
of
All right.
construction companies, whatever
Yeah.
construction company, that
Got it.
fleet manager.
Yeah.
And
Your sales
and
guys,
so
customers, basically.
yes, yes. And so I've spoke at their Connect conference for two years in a row. And so I get to visit with them. And
Yeah.
this is what's funny, that they've been screaming for years. I don't care about the brand. I don't care about
Mm,
performance. I don't
mm.
care about interest rates. I don't care about options or fuel efficiency. All I care about is when it breaks, because our industry's been around 100 years. It doesn't matter what brand you buy, they all
They all.
break, right? I don't care about the warranty. I don't care about any of that. When it breaks, do you have the parts to fix it, and do you have the technicians to fix it? Like, that's
Mhm.
all they care about. Like, the customers are screaming, Jay, at the top of their lungs, do you have parts and do you have technicians? And the dealership says, let me show you this new option. We've got this 12-inch screen. Do you have parts and technicians? Well, let me tell you about this 3-year warranty. Do you have parts and technicians? Let me tell you about the financing options. And it's frustrating to them because they're like, I don't care about the price. I mean, to within a certain degree, right?
Mhm.
But that's not the driving factor. Like, yeah, give me a good price, but I'll pay more money if you can just take care of me. If you will partner with me, I'll buy everything from you. I don't
Right.
care what brand it is.
Right.
And the customers, the market is screaming this. And the dealerships are just like, well, let me tell you about this new model came out and it has we don't care. And so a lot of dealers are starting to get it. They're starting to realize, hey, we have to service stuff. So um it's been exciting over the last year or so. Like, just the business has just exploded on my end. It's to the point my wife is complaining that I'm gone too much, which is,
Okay.
I think, a good thing, right? But I do have some space. I have some space for maybe one or two more dealers to work with this year. And so basically, I mean, I walk through my process on this call. Is I do a financial benchmarking. I'll do initial on-site visit, and then I'll put together an executive summary and say, this is what your market capacity is. And so I'll put a number on it. I was like, hey, we're going to grow this by 2 million or 5 million or whatever. Like,
Mm,
this is what success looks like. Like, it's going to
yeah.
be, if we work together and we're successful, this is what it's going to look like. Like, you're going to know in 12 months if this is working or not.
Right.
And then I'll say, this is what's wrong. And then I'll say, this is how you fix it.
Mm,
And here, good luck. If you want to work on it on your own, you want to apply these things, then you can do it. I've told you what's wrong and I told you how to fix it. Um, but if you want to work with me, like, this is what this looks like. And so then I'll do a custom engagement that will focus on their location, because
got it.
working with a 1 to 2 location dealership trying to get to 4 or 5 is different than working with one that has 53 locations, right? Like,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not the same beast. And
Right.
so I'll custom create these are our issues. And in my conversations, we will be working with them. I'm not telling, I'm working with them. Like, this is our major issues, and these are the things that will get the biggest bang for the buck. Let's focus on those. Just focus on the low hanging fruit. Let's get these little things right, and then we will move forward. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
fun
great.
and exciting, but it's but you will. It goes back down to that. Honest, truthfully, Jay, like we we're talking about, just having that accountability of having that weekly call with the owner or the executive or whoever I'm working with to hold them accountable. And it's like, you said that this is what you wanted to do, like, and you're paying me to ask you these questions every week. And it's just having that accountability that, you're going to have a call with somebody.
Yeah.
And even if you're the owner, and I think that's really important. A lot of owners like, well, I'm the owner, I'm the president, I'm the CEO. Okay. The Bible says it's not good for a man to be alone. And a 3-cord rope is uneasy broken, whatever.
Right.
Getting tongue tied.
Right.
And executives need coaching too. They need somebody to vent. And I'll say this, that when you're the man on top or the woman on top, the air is thin and it's very lonely, and you don't have nobody to talk to. Like, you can't talk to your support. You can't like bounce things around, because they're going to be saying, man, this is a guy's a flounder. Like, he doesn't know what the crap he's doing. One day he wants to do this. One day he wants to do that. And when you're on top, you're just talking through ideas. Like, you got these ideas bouncing through your head and you're just discussing it like out loud. And it's not really good to do that with your subordinates, And so that's one thing I do executive coaching, is like, I'm the sounding board.
Yeah.
If it's a really dumb idea, I'm going to say it's dumb. If it's a good idea, let's work through it. And like, can we play this out?
Right.
So anyways, I'm just here to help.
That's great.
Whatever I can do.
All right. That's great. Well, thank you for joining. And if you are a dealer principal or an executive at a dealership and you need some coaching around parts and service, check out John Dowling at Service by the Boxes. John, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Heavy Hitters. And if you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to follow and share. Now stay focused and stay tuned.